book that it's kind of nice if you're a new weaver and you're learning some things about weaving and why we do certain things. There's they tell you all about different colors, and they also have these diagrams that might look like hieroglyphics to you, but you see these little blocks colored in. These represent the shafts, and I'm going to show you what that is in a minute. The reason I'm showing you this book is because all of these patterns are things you can do with one particular threading, the threading that I'm going to do today. Now you can see they use different colors, and they tell you which different color you need. And as you continue on, they might even change the color. This is all the same color in the warp. And then if you keep on going, it'll show you different colors in the warp. So here's the burgundy and then the green, so it tells you how many threads. But this is all basically the same threading. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now I'm going to go old school. You can also there's also computer programs out there that will also show this information to you. But I wanted to show you a way you can do it if you want to put on a small piece of paper. When you're reading those particular, what we call drafts, each row represents, we have shaft 4 in the back, 3, 2, and 1. And what I'm going to be doing today is threading 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and continue on. If I did it the other way, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, I would basically get the same pattern. I just happen to, I'm right-handed, so I do it the other direction. So this represents one thread. It's going to go each heddle. This is our tie-up, but we'll talk about that later on. As we did in the math, we have 80 ends. One thread goes per heddle. We have 4 shafts. Now, how do I determine how many heddles per shaft? Something you want to make sure you have enough of ahead of time. Well, this case, I have 4, 80. I divided it, and I have 20 heddles per shaft. But what I want to do is I want to have half on one side and half on the other. Now, remember, I'm right-handed, so you might want to kind of flip this upside down and go the other direction. So this is the center. So what I want to end up with is 10 on one side and 10 on the other. So depending on what kind of loom you have, you can find the center of your shafts. So that's what I'm going to do. Now this particular loom, the baby wolves, are a little off center. So sometimes it's a little confusing, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Let me put these aside and tilt the loom up so I can show you a little bit better what I'm talking about, why sometimes this loom's a little different than some other looms. This particular loom, they have this here, but however, this is really the center. So if I would measure the loom, this is really the center. So to speak, I have almost a whole inch on this side. So because this is going to be 10 inches, in many ways, I'm going to have not 5 on one side and 5 on the other. It'll be more likely 6 on one side and 4 on the other. So that kind of messes up my math. But let's just pretend that we don't have to worry about that. Let's just pretend that we're doing half on one side, 10 and 10 on the other. And what I would do, if that's the kind of loom I have, I would count over to make sure that I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now the reason I'm pushing them that direction is because I'm going to warp this way and I'm going to pull them over. So I'm going to make sure I have enough on each one. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And do the same thing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And the back one, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So I have all of those pushed to the side. And turn the loom a little bit. Make sure you can see a little bit better what's going on here. And like I said, if I wanted to do this the way that this particular loom operates, we're going to pretend now that I have that I'm going to do it for the baby wolf. I would basically do 4 more. I would do another inch for each one, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will add another 1, 2, 3, 4. So I added 8 more heddles to that. So now I will have 6 inches on one side and 4 on the other. Right. So what's a couple different ways. Now right now this is pretty low. What I like to do is I like to have my shafts up. One of the things about warping a loom is you want to be as comfortable as you can. So right now if I'm this way I have to lean down. I could also lower my bench, but I like to be at this height. So I'm going to now do something to raise the shafts. So what can we do to raise the shafts in this case? Well, I want them all up. So I do want to make sure that I get them all up. Now, I've been known at times to use cones of yarn in here to get them higher. I've also put books in there, or I could have it this direction and have them up high like that, and that holds them. I've also been known to do anything I could find, a piece of wood. Now, somewhere along the line, I acquired these fancy pieces of wood. There's no need for anything that fancy, but basically what you're doing is you're putting something, and you might want to put it on both sides, especially if you have a wider loom. This is a smaller loom. So now the shafts are all at a level that makes it a lot easier for me to start warping this particular loom. So let me tilt this back up, and I will start to show you what I do. I'm not sure if we'll do the whole particular loom or not, or the whole warp with this one or not. So first of all, these lee sticks are over here, which is nice. I can see my threads. And since I have the 2 different colors, what I want to do is I want to do the darker purple and then the lavender. The other thing that I like to do is I like to hold all the yarn underneath the shafts, just like that, because they're not rubbing on the heddles or anything. So what I just did was to try to make sure that I don't make mistakes, but I still do. I'm going to do an inch at a time. So I'm going to just slide over 2 on each one of these. So I have 8. Ready? Okay. Now what I do is I don't use any extra gadgets. Like I said, I'm going to do the light one, and we take the thread in half and put it through the first heddle. So that's the lighter of the 2. Slide it over and get it out of the way. Now take the darker one and make sure I am doing it 4, 3, 2, 1. I had it on the paper 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going back to where the book was, so we'll go as the book did. Like I said, either way, it doesn't matter. They'll both give me the tabby weave is what I'm looking for. Well, I don't want the dark one. I want the light one next. So I'm going to take a light one, and that's going to be here. And now I take the dark one. Okay. I'm going to do that again. Start with the lighter one. And it's like I said, it's kind of nice. You have to remember when you do 2 at a time. Of course, you could do 3 or even 4. There are gadgets called paddles that you can use, but that would be a whole other lesson in itself. And when you're first learning to weave, you really don't want to have too many extra contraptions around because you want things to go smoothly. Like I said, I did 2 at a time, but I'm also using yarn that's pretty easy to work with and thick. So now I can also stop and I will check to see that I don't have any errors, and I see everything looks fine. And then what I do is I do one of those little overhand loops and I loop it together, and that's my 1 inch. So I slide that to the side. What we'll do is the same thing again. Take 2, 2, 2, and 2. So depending on what your pattern is, that's one way to try to help you prevent making too many threading errors. So again, I folded it in half. And if you need to drop this and slide it and do it with both hands and hold it, there's no problem with doing that. That's the other nice thing, because you can be hands-free. So if the phone rings right now or something happens, hey, I can come back to it later and I can see where I left off. I come back and, oh, okay, I'm right here. So now I'm going to slow down. I'm going to take the one and I'm going to slide it in here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the next one. Again, I'm sliding them. I can see where it is as we're going over. And right now I can see I actually pulled an extra one over. I don't want that in there, so I'm going to slide that out. The reason I do this is so I can also, holding on to it, I can slide the next one off a little bit easier. Going back to the way that I practiced it, and I'm going to do it again. We start with the 4. It's a great time to also talk to yourself. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Take that again, bring it over, and do a little group like that in it. And then I'm going to continue on until I get to the very end, and then I will show you that I will take out, what I do is I leave the sticks in, the leaf sticks in until I'm finished. I often leave the rattle in until I'm finished with threading the reed, and then I'll take the rattle off and make sure all of these things are disconnected. So that's the beginning part of threading the loom. And I will continue on. The next thing you'll see that it'll all be finished, and we'll start threading the reed. Here we are, ready to start threading the reed. And as you can see, I have 2 longer sticks, and they go from the front and they go all the way to the back. And then what I'm doing is I have the reed right across the 2, and I already have my reed hook that I'm going to use to thread the loom. Some of my reeds have center marks, and this one does. It has a center mark. It tells me the middle. And if you don't have that on yours, I suggest that you take your reed. This one's a 28-inch reed. Now this loom only weaves 26. Well, what's nice is that you can get a reed that's a little bit longer, but with the baby wolf and the wolf pups and a lot of the mighty wolf, they have to fit the reed. Some other looms you can have longer reeds to fit in. So half of that was 14, so I put a little line, very small line there for 14. And like I said, this is 10 inches wide in the loom, so I often just take my ruler, tape measure, and I'll put my reed hook right there at 5. So that's the first slot that I'm going to start to thread. What we'll do is take this, loosen it up. It's nice to kind of shake it out a little bit, maybe loosen it, because then each thread will come out a little bit easier. And you can just leave them hang if you want, or along the side. Again, whoop, and see what I just did? I had the center, and now I have to go mark it again. So let's go, it's right there, all right? So I know I need to, right in here, pull it through, and I go from the bottom, I pull it down. And again, I'm going to take the next one, next thread, move it over, take it, and it goes in the next particular slot. This is very nice because I happen to have a reed that is 8 dents per inch, and that's what I'm weaving. Now, if I didn't, I might have to go and do a little calculating like I showed you earlier. I might have to do 1, 2, 1, 2, or maybe even skip 1. So what I'll do now is I'll do that same overhand knot underneath, so that's secure. Going to go to the next grouping and do the same thing. Take it through. Again, this yarn is pretty easy to work with, so for your first project or two, try to get some user-friendly yarn. Nice wool works, commercial spun wool is very nice to work with, and heavier cottons. Like 3-2 cotton, or even this is pretty nice to work. It's a thick and thin. It's a rayon and cotton blend. So I'm going to continue going across, and it's nice to kind of, like I said, spread out a little bit. Move these out of the way and go back to the back one, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, slide it over, and again, 1's here, 4, whoops, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and group it. So I'll continue to the other end, and then we'll put the reed into the beater and start to tie it on.